A dense mist blanketed the jungle, curling between the towering trees like ghostly fingers. Noah had ventured deep into this untamed wilderness, chasing a faint lead about uncharted flora for his botanical research. As an ecologist, he thrived on discovery, but the jungle's oppressive heat and relentless insects made even him question his decision. He paused by a glimmering stream, wiping sweat from his brow. The sound of rushing water provided a rare moment of tranquility, until he noticed a small, flailing form caught in the current. A bird, its black feathers slick with water, was trapped against a rock. It chirped weakly, struggling against the relentless force of the stream. Noah didn't hesitate. He dropped his pack and waded into the cold water, his boots slipping on mossy stones. Reaching the bird, he cupped it gently in his hands. Its beady eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, he felt an odd spark, like a fleeting whisper brushing against the edges of his mind. "Got you," he murmured, cradling the trembling creature as he returned to shore. He set it down carefully on a patch of soft moss. Its wings quivered, and he noticed something strange, an intricate pattern of silvery lines on its feathers, almost like circuitry. He blinked, wondering if it was a trick of the light. The bird chirped again, louder this time, and its body began to glow faintly. Noah scrambled back, heart pounding, as the glow intensified. The bird's form blurred, twisting and stretching, until it was no longer a bird at all. Before him stood a woman, her figure draped in a shimmering, iridescent cloak that seemed to flow like liquid. Her eyes, wide and luminous, locked onto his with an intensity that made him forget how to breathe. "Thank you," she said, her voice like the chime of crystal. Noah stared, struggling to process what he had just witnessed. What are you?" "I am Seryn," she replied, tilting her head as if puzzled by his reaction. "And you? You are unlike the others." He couldn't decide whether to run or stay rooted in place. "The others? What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, she took a step closer, her movements graceful yet alien. "You saved me. For that, I owe you a debt. But you should not have been able to see me in my true form." Noah's mind raced. "True form? Are you saying you're not human?" Seryn's lips curved into a faint smile. "Not as you understand it. I am a vanir, a traveler between realms. My kind observes, learns, but never interferes. Today, I failed to uphold that rule," she explained, her words weaving an intricate tale of her people's mission to catalog the universe's wonders. Her transformation into a bird had been a disguise, one meant to gather data unnoticed. But something had gone wrong, and she had become ensnared in the jungle's chaotic energy. Noah listened, his initial fear giving way to awe. "Why were you in the jungle? What could possibly interest a vanir here?" Her expression darkened. "The jungle hides more than you know. Something stirs beneath its surface, something ancient and dangerous." Before he could press her further, a loud crack echoed through the forest. Seryn tensed, her eyes scanning the trees. "We must leave. Now." "No," Noah protested. "If there's danger, I need to know. My work." "Your work means nothing if you're dead," she interrupted, grabbing his wrist. Her touch sent a shock through him, and he realized her hand was warmer than it should be, almost as if it pulsed with energy. Before he could argue further, the ground beneath them began to shake. Roots and vines erupted from the soil, writhing like living creatures. Seryn pulled him back just as a massive tendril lashed out, narrowly missing his leg. "What is happening?" he shouted, panic setting in. Seryn's eyes glowed brighter. "The jungle is alive. But it is no mere forest, it is a prison. Something has awakened, and it seeks to break free." Her words made no sense, but Noah had no time to question them. The vines were relentless, forcing them to flee deeper into the jungle. As they ran, Seryn seemed to guide them with an unerring sense of direction, avoiding traps and dead ends. Finally, they reached a clearing where the oppressive energy seemed to abate. Seryn released his wrist, and Noah doubled over, gasping for breath. What was that?" "The Guardian," she said grimly. "An ancient construct meant to keep what lies beneath contained. But its power wanes, and the entity it holds grows stronger. Noah frowned. You're saying the jungle is some kind of prison? For what? Seryn hesitated, then said, a being older than your species, capable of reshaping reality itself. My people sealed it here eons ago, but we underestimated its resilience. Her words sent a chill through him. And now it's waking up. Yes. And it will consume everything if it escapes. Despite the absurdity of the situation, Noah felt a surge of determination. Then we have to stop it. Seryn studied him, her gaze unreadable. You are bold for one so fragile. But there may be a way. Together, they ventured deeper into the jungle, Seryn revealing fragments of her knowledge along the way. The Vanir had left behind artifacts, keys to reinforce the Guardian's power. But finding them in time would be a race against the entity's growing strength. As they navigated the perilous terrain, Noah began to notice changes in Seryn. She seemed torn, her usual composure slipping into moments of vulnerability. At times, she would glance at him as if searching for something, her luminous eyes flickering with emotion. "What's wrong?" he asked during one of their rare moments of rest. She hesitated before replying, "You remind me of someone I once knew. Someone I lost." The admission caught him off guard. "A Vanir." She nodded, her expression somber. "We do not experience time as you do, but loss is universal." Before he could respond, the ground shook again, signaling the entity's growing unrest. They pressed on, their journey fraught with danger and revelations. As they pieced together the Vanir's ancient technology, Noah realized the cost of stopping the entity might be greater than he imagined. In the end, Seryn faced a choice: remain and fight alongside him, risking her life, or return to her realm and leave humanity to its fate. Her decision would not only determine the jungle's future, but also the bond they had forged in the heart of its chaos. As the tremors grew stronger and the air thickened with an unnatural energy, Seryn led Noah to a place she called the Nexus. The journey was grueling, pushing them both to their limits. Despite her alien resilience, even Seryn began to show signs of strain, her glow dimming with each step. The Nexus was unlike anything Noah had ever seen. Hidden deep within the jungle, it was a massive clearing surrounded by towering, crystalline structures that hummed with a low, resonant frequency. The ground pulsed faintly, as if alive, and the air shimmered with a strange iridescence. "This is the heart of the Guardian's power," Seryn said, her voice tinged with awe and fear. "The keys we gathered must be placed here to restore its strength." Noah held the strange, rune-covered artifacts they had collected along their journey. They were cold to the touch, yet they seemed to vibrate faintly, almost as if resonating with the Nexus itself. He turned to Seryn. "And if we succeed, the entity will stay contained?" She hesitated. "For now. But the seal will not last forever. The Guardian was never meant to be a permanent solution." She hesitated. "I gave up much to save you. My connection to the Vanir is severed. I can no longer return to them." Her words hit him like a punch to the chest. "You stayed." She nodded. "For you. For this world. I made my choice." Emotion overwhelmed him, and for a moment, words failed. Instead, he reached for her hand, his fingers curling around hers. "We'll figure this out," he said, his voice steady despite everything. "Together." And in the heart of the jungle, where their story began, they sat side by side, bound by a bond that transcended species, time, and fate. The days following the battle felt surreal. The jungle, once alive with ominous energy, now seemed to exhale in relief. The air was lighter, the oppressive weight lifted, though the scars of the struggle remained. The crystalline structures of the Nexus pulsed faintly, their repaired forms stabilizing the fragile seal on the ancient entity. Noah and Seryn made camp not far from the Nexus. They both needed time to recover. Seryn's glow, though faint, was returning slowly. Noah, however, felt the lingering effects of what he'd done. The Nexus had taken a part of him, something intangible but vital. He felt it in his bones, an aching void that no amount of rest could seem to fill. "Are you sure you're all right?" Seryn asked one evening, her luminous eyes scanning him with concern. He shrugged, poking at the small fire they'd built. "Define all right. I'm alive, so that's something." Her gaze softened, and she reached out, placing a hand on his. You gave more than you should have. The Nexus wasn't meant for someone like you to interface with. Your resilience is remarkable, but there may be consequences. Noah managed a crooked smile. You mean besides feeling like I aged 10 years in a day? Seryn didn't laugh. Instead, she looked away, her expression troubled. The Nexus didn't just take energy from you. It connected you to its purpose, to the Guardian's essence. You may find yourself changed. Changed how? She hesitated, as though searching for the right words. Your life is now tied to the seal. If it weakens again, you will feel it. And if it breaks, I break with it, Noah finished grimly. Seryn nodded, her sorrow evident. I would never have allowed this if I had known the cost. You didn't force me, he said firmly. I made the choice. And if it means keeping that thing locked away, I'll live with it. Seryn's hand tightened on his. You are too selfless for your own good, Noah. He chuckled weakly. I'll take that as a compliment. In the days that followed, Seryn began to teach Noah more about the Nexus, the Guardian, and the ancient entity sealed beneath the jungle. She spoke of her people, the Vanir, and their role as cosmic archivists. But her connection to them was severed, leaving her stranded in a world that was not her own. Do you regret it? Noah asked one evening, as they sat under the stars. The jungle was quieter than usual, the hum of nocturnal life subdued as though the land itself was resting. Regret. She considered his question carefully. I regret the pain you've endured because of me. I regret the choices that led to this moment. But staying here, choosing to stand with you, she turned to him, her eyes shining in the firelight. No. I do not regret that. Her words sent a warmth through him that had nothing to do with the fire. I'm glad you're here, he said softly. Their bond deepened in the days that followed, forged in the crucible of shared trials and quiet moments. Noah found himself relying on Seryn's wisdom, her perspective on the universe broadening his understanding of life itself. In turn, she found solace in his unwavering humanity, his ability to find hope even in the darkest of times. But peace was fleeting. Weeks later, as Noah collected samples near the Nexus, he felt it, a faint, insistent tug in his chest. It was a strange sensation, like a whisper at the edge of his awareness. He dropped the sample bag and staggered back, clutching his chest. Seryn was by his side in an instant. What's wrong? It's the seal, he gasped. Something's happening. Her expression turned grim. We need to investigate. Now. They rushed to the Nexus, where the crystalline structures were flickering erratically. A faint crack had appeared in one of the pillars, and from it seeped a thin tendril of darkness, writhing like a living thing. No, Seryn whispered. It's too soon. What do we do? Noah asked, panic creeping into his voice. Seryn's gaze hardened. We reinforce it. Together. This time, she guided him, their hands pressed against the crystal as they channeled their combined energy into the Nexus. The process was excruciating, the darkness resisting their efforts. Noah felt the strain in every fiber of his being, but Seryn's presence steadied him. Hold on, she urged, her voice firm but gentle. You can do this. The light of the Nexus surged, and with a final burst of effort, the crack sealed itself. The darkness retreated, and the crystalline structures returned to their steady hum. Noah collapsed to his knees, his breath ragged. That was harder than last time. Seryn knelt beside him, her face pale but determined. The entity is testing the seal. It knows you are connected to it now. It will push harder each time. He looked at her, fear and exhaustion etched into his features. How long can we keep this up? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she took his hand and squeezed it tightly. As long as we have to. As the days turned to weeks, Noah and Seryn prepared for the inevitable. Together, they reinforced the Nexus, studied the jungle's secrets, and devised strategies to hold back the ancient entity. Their bond grew stronger, a partnership built on trust, sacrifice, and a shared determination to protect the world. But the shadow of the entity loomed ever closer, a constant reminder that their struggle was far from over. Noah's connection to the Nexus was both a blessing and a curse, granting him insights into the jungle's ancient power but tying him irrevocably to its fate. Seryn, too, faced her own challenges. Stripped of her connection to the Vanir, she was an exile in a strange land, her future uncertain. Yet, she found purpose in their fight and solace in Noah's companionship. Together, they stood as the jungle's last line of defense, knowing that their battle was far from over but refusing to give up. For in the heart of the wilderness, amidst the chaos and danger, they had found something worth fighting for, not just the world, but each other. The days turned into months, each one marked by a delicate balance between vigilance and fleeting moments of peace. Noah and Seryn worked tirelessly to strengthen the Guardian Seal, each intervention binding them closer, not just to the Nexus but to each other. Despite the looming threat, they carved out a rhythm of life in the jungle, a fragile sanctuary amidst the chaos. One morning, as the first light filtered through the canopy, Noah woke to find Seryn sitting by the stream, her feet dipping into the cool water. Her glow had returned, soft and steady, no longer the flickering light of exhaustion. She turned as he approached, a gentle smile gracing her features. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I was thinking," she said, her gaze fixed on the rippling water. "About how far we've come." Noah chuckled softly. "Feels like a lifetime, doesn't it?" She nodded. "When I first came here, I was so certain of my path. Observe, record, and move on. No attachments, no interference. That was the way of my people. But now," she looked at him, her luminous eyes filled with emotion. "Now I see the value in staying, in fighting for something, for someone." Her words made his chest tighten, and he reached for her hand. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Seryn. And I wouldn't want to." They sat in silence for a moment, the jungle alive with the sounds of birds and insects. It was a rare moment of peace, one they had both learned to cherish. The peace, however, was interrupted a few weeks later when the familiar tug in Noah's chest returned. This time, it was stronger, sharper, a warning he couldn't ignore. He and Seryn rushed to the Nexus, where they found the crystalline structures vibrating with unstable energy. "The entity is making its final push," Seryn said, her voice steady but grave. "This will be the hardest test yet." Noah swallowed hard. "Do we have enough left to stop it?" She placed a hand on his cheek, her touch warm and grounding. "Together, we do." The Nexus glowed brighter as they placed their hands against the crystals, their combined energy surging into the structure. The entity fought back fiercely, its dark tendrils lashing out, but they held firm. The ground shook, the air crackling with raw power, but Noah and Seryn didn't falter. "You're doing it," Seryn said, her voice a beacon of encouragement. "Just a little more." Noah gritted his teeth, pouring everything he had into the Nexus. The light intensified, washing over the clearing in a blinding surge. The entity let out a final, furious roar as it was forced back into its prison, the ground sealing shut once more. As the light faded, the jungle fell silent. The Nexus pulsed with a steady hum, its glow stronger than ever. The seal had held. Noah staggered, but Seryn caught him before he could fall. "You did it," she whispered, her voice filled with relief and pride. "We did it," he corrected, managing a weak smile. In the days that followed, the jungle seemed to come alive in a new way. The oppressive energy that had lingered for so long was gone, replaced by a sense of balance and renewal. Plants that had withered began to bloom, and the wildlife returned in greater numbers. The Guardian Seal was stronger than it had been in centuries, thanks to their efforts. Noah and Seryn stood at the edge of the Nexus one evening, watching as the crystals shimmered in the fading light. "Do you think it'll hold?" Noah asked. Seryn nodded. "For a long time, yes. And with the improvements we've made, it'll be easier to maintain." He let out a breath of relief. "Good. I was starting to think I wouldn't survive another round of that." She laughed softly, the sound musical and full of life. "You've proven you're far stronger than you realize, Noah." They turned to leave, but Seryn hesitated. "There's one last thing I need to tell you," she said, her voice serious. Noah frowned. "What is it?" She looked at him, her gaze steady. "The connection you have to the Nexus, it's still there. But I found a way to lessen its burden on you. How? She smiled, a soft glow surrounding her. By sharing it. Fully. Before he could respond, she pressed her hands to his, and a warmth spread through him. He felt the weight of the Nexus lessen, its energy settling into a harmonious balance between them. You didn't have to do that, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, I did, she replied. You shouldn't have to carry this alone. We're partners, Noah. In this and in everything. He pulled her into an embrace, holding her tightly. Thank you. In the months that followed, Noah and Seryn built a life together in the jungle. They worked to ensure the Guardian seal remained strong, but they also found time to explore, to learn, and to simply be. Their bond deepened, not just through the trials they had faced but through the quiet moments they shared. The laughter, the conversations, the companionship. The jungle became their home, a place of healing and purpose. And though the shadow of the ancient entity still lingered, they knew they could face whatever came next. Together. As the sun set one evening, casting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Noah and Seryn stood hand in hand, watching the world transform before their eyes. It's beautiful, Noah said. Seryn leaned into him, her glow soft and warm. It is. And so is the future. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, they allowed themselves to dream, not of battles or sacrifices, but of a life filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. And in that moment, the jungle, the Nexus, and the universe itself seemed to hum with quiet contentment.